AskReddit by Akumaji. People who were homeless once, how did you get your life on the track back? My turning point came unexpectedly. One cold night, I was approached by a kind-hearted volunteer from a local homeless organization in my town's version of Skid Row. She offered me a warm meal and, more importantly, a listening ear. It was the first time in months that I felt seen and heard. This encounter led me to local shelter where I found not just refuge but a community that supported me. With their help, I started to rebuild my life. I volunteered at the shelter, which kept me busy and gave me a sense of purpose. I was eventually able to secure a part-time job through the shelter's network, which was a major stepping stone for me. The job provided enough stability to rent a small room. It's been a journey of small steps, but each one has been a victory. I've realized the power of community support and the strength that comes from within when you're pushed to the brink. Congrats on all those steps. Glad you were able to find the strength to carry on. Slept in 10x10 storage space until my car was legal on the road. If you can wash your ass in 30-degree weather, you can deal with almost anything. I have a diaper sprayer that I use as a bidet. In the winter my beehole freezes. I can relate to you in this small way. I was one of the working homeless. What saved me was getting a new job across the country, where I had family I could stay with until I got back on my feet. I can't help but think there are a lot of people that find themselves homeless and just need a few months of housing and stability to get back on track again. I am glad you were able to find that and get sorted. Sobered up and got my CDL. It's a house on wheels and pays surprisingly good. Good man. I joined the army. Through a lot of bad decisions and bad luck I found myself couch surfing with friends and sleeping in my car. I was in school when this happened, so I would park my car in a grocery store parking lot, walk to school and shower in the men's gym. Eventually it started getting too cold for me to sleep in the car. Where I live the snowfall is measured in feet not inches, so I was brainstorming how the hell I was going to get out of this mess. Because once you fall into that hole it's almost impossible to get out without help. So I just said fuck it and walked into an army recruitment station across the street from campus. Of course, that was 2000, so joke was on me. The timing sucked lol. I was born only 2 years later from when you joined and I'm also in the army now. If you could summarize your time in the military with one word or sentence, how would you summarize it? Respect. I slept in my car next to work and kept on going. Yes. Homeless but have a job? You've never wanted to go to work so bad in your life. Running water, restroom, pretend everything is okay for most of the day. I was in a homeless shelter, found a job, then saved all the money I could save. I also had food stamps. Found an income-based apartment practically next door to where I work so I didn't have to walk 2 miles to work anymore. I've been at my job and living in my apartment for 3 years now. I still don't have a car, but hey, I'll get one eventually. I don't need one, so not top priority, but saving up for a car is so hard, haha. I don't know what the cost of cars in the US is like, but one of the biggest things about cars is the cost of using and maintaining it. That's what puts me off a car or bike. I don't need the costs. Was homeless for 6 years, relied on my brother and then my wife's family to put a roof over my head. I job hopped around to better and better jobs until I landed my current position that pays me well and gives good hours. This allowed me to be able to afford to buy a house, cheaper than renting in my area, and finally leave homelessness. Issue is my job is being cut Q1 2024 due to budget cuts. I'm trying to find something else, but I have had no luck so far. If I have to go on EI, things will be tight but barely doable with a lot of cutbacks. Good luck. Asked for help and took every opportunity that came my way. I lived in a shelter for several years and there was a lot of services and programs available. One specific program was to get your CDL. I thought there would be a waiting list to get in the class. Out of 60 guys living in the shelter, I was the only one. I couldn't believe it. Anyway, worked my way out of that hell with a lot of help. Gotta stay clean for a CDL, and not everyone can do that. Deleted. The absolute gall of those people. Glad you found your own family, because those hypocritical godbutherers ain't it. I'm so mad on behalf of you and your past self. I was homeless when I was 16. Getting into a youth shelter in town I heard about was the most important thing. I had to pay a fee to stay there, but as I was working part-time after school when I got kicked out, I was able to afford the $300 a month for a room and one meal a day. The most important thing I remember was being kind to the staff and keeping my head down, not engaging too much with the other girls, as there was a lot of drug use and bad attitudes to deal with. Not everyone. There were plenty of people just in a bad position trying their best too. After 6 months I was able to get assistance with a shared apartment that was geared to income. I had to leave school before my last year as I moved too far and had to afford food and rent. I went back to finish a few years later. If I didn't have somewhere safe to sleep, and people to talk to and help me look for a better situation, I would probably be in a much worse place. I managed to find a great partner, buy a home and have a career I really enjoy. I have a lot of fallout from that time however, and still deal with feelings associated with instability. Some life experiences really shape who we become, in one way or another, and I think being homeless has to be one of the most difficult things to experience. My dad died and I got a bit of money. About $30k. I also stopped doing drugs, clean a couple years now. I'm so sorry to hear but I'm incredibly glad that inheritance helped you out so much. And congrats on your sobriety. I left home at 18 the day of my high school graduation. Abusive home. 2 huge problems when you're homeless: shelter and food. I had a car, 1988 Ford Escort, not bragging, and was working at a restaurant as a dishwasher and you got a free shift meal. As the dishwasher, out of time food came back untouched. I'd sneak it into a bag and take it with me and have food till I worked again. Chef caught me. Took me outside. I started taking off my apron, figured I'm fired. He lights up a cigarette, asks what's going on. I tell him I'm kinda going through something at the moment. He gives me actual food each night and 2 weeks later his wife and him cleared out a corner of the space above his garage and let me stay there. 2 rules: do something like mow the lawn and don't be an asshole. That was the start of getting my life on the right track. Having somebody show you care. Dang, what a beautiful story. I'm glad you made it out. Chef's kindness is absolutely heartwarming. Super inspiring. BC clearing out a corner is something a lot of us can do. Thanks for sharing, man. Once I slept in my car through 4 of the winter months. It sucked. Another time I didn't have a car. So I couch surfed for a while until folks weren't excited for extended sleepovers. Then I slept in the woods. And in parks. And anywhere else I could. Redditors try to answer the question challenge. Impossible. I know you're looking for uplifting stories, but just to throw my 2 cents in, there are a lot more depressing stories in my experience. I work in public assistance, which includes providing temporary housing for homeless clients, and I also do the county burial applications, and let me just say, there's a lot of overlap between those 2 clienteles. Life on the streets is a harsh mistress. I imagine it puts a lot of years and stress on a body, and the people going into it probably aren't in the most optimal shape to begin with. I know as myself just turning 50. I often contemplate dropping out of the rat race and going to be a train hopping hobo or something. The biggest thing that stops me is, quite frankly, I don't think my body could survive it, especially after barely surviving the pandemic and COVID-19 hospitalization, which I'm sure did a number on my heart. I crashed with a friend for a while, then stayed with an ex for a few months. Kept trying to figure out how to make money doing freelance and applying to jobs, but nothing was working. Finally I had to give up and become a stripper. That was awful. But I saved up money while working at a club for a year, then heard about a coding boot camp. Blew through my entire savings studying programming for 3 months. In the end I got a good paying tech job and now I'm a software developer. You didn't have any replies, so just wanted to say that I'm blown away and amazed at how strong you are. I'm sorry you had to go through that. You're an amazing human and I'm glad you're doing well now. I am still in the working of getting my life on track, but I was homeless for 2 years, living on the streets or in a forest in a tent. Was a raging alcoholic with the wrong crowd of friends. I am getting help with my addiction, hospitalized in a psych ward, getting help with my debts and looking for a place to live that is kinda supervised. I still have a long way to go, but feel like I made a lot of progress of getting on track. Proud of you, friend. Keep it up. We got evicted from our apartment BC of increasing rent and we could no longer afford to live there for about 5 months. My family and I didn't have a place to live and we spent a couple nights at a hotel until we decided to live with my great grandma for a bit. My stepdad eventually left. He was opposed either way, and we were on our own so many nights just watching my mom cry. I was only 14 so I couldn't do much but provide emotional support and tell her to keep going. Eventually my grandma gave my mom an ultimatum that she divorced my stepdad and she will help us get an apartment. I still get emotional thinking about it BC of how traumatizing it all was. I barely remember it now and nobody knows I was homeless. Every now and then my mom brings it up and we just laugh about it like it's a funny memory. I was homeless for most of the year in 2019. What saved me was student loans to put a down payment for the house I rent. I worked so hard to get where I needed to go. With work and school. I remember working for my paycheck and that paycheck was going to hotel stays for the week. That really sucked. I continued school and graduated this year. I was fortunate enough to have a vehicle and a job. I would camp in a primitive campsite and wake up 2 hours early and go to a state park that had a bathhouse and shower and get ready for work. At the time I drank alcohol but was only a casual drinker. I decided that I would stop drinking to save money. I would wake up feeling better and felt better every day. I kept working 70-80 hours a week and after many speed bumps in my road I finally got a studio condo. I would almost get enough money to get a place but then something out of my control would happen. One week I got 2 nails in different tires. Then the following week I had to get new brakes. I wanted to give up but I knew I would get through it. At the time Chris Stapleton's album had just come out and when I wasn't working or after work when I had a campfire going I was listening to it. It was the coldest winter the area had in man. Well, I was homeless with my ex, then broke up with her, moved in with a friend, then I found my fiance, moved in with her. Now I'm looking down the barrel of homelessness again. IDK, if I'll ever have a home I highly doubt it. You will, someday, and I hope that day is soon to come. I actually give a presentation about my experience every year to a college program. I was abandoned by my parents at 15 and couch surfed or slept on the streets. One day I asked myself if I was going to let this be my life. I decided no, I was not. One of the only reasons I think I was able to do that is because I had done recreational activities all through my childhood. There's a very strong correlation with recreation and resilience, and I know I'm only in a good place today because of all my recreation in early life. At 17 my boyfriend's family took me in. I lucked out because the dad was the head of psychiatry at the university and the mom was a social worker. They got me to go back to school and they treated me with respect and gave me the autonomy to make better choices. I moved to a different city, graduated high school and went on to create a life for myself. The circumstances for being homeless were out of my control. I moved to an entirely different state so my child's mother could be with her family. She didn't work, I did. And she was in charge of paying the bills with my money. Stay at home mom type thing. Long story short, she didn't. She was cheating, and when we got kicked out of our place she moved in with the chick she was sleeping with. And then left with her to another state, taking my child. I was homeless for over 10 months, walking and hitchhiking and getting money for buses till I got to that state, and once in the state I got a bunch of cans and bottles, enough for a 1-month membership to Planet Fitness to be able to shower and stuff, and got a job doing shit work for a tire place, saves, and slept in the woods till I got a place, and then hit her with court papers and she couldn't leave. She had no clue I had tracked her down. No. I stopped using crystal meth and everything else started to work out. Finally interfaced with the VA.